Good morning. How are you, Rick?
I'm doing really well. And of course, it's not morning here anymore in Bali.
Oh no, of
It's the
course it's not,
afternoon.
isn't it?
But it's morning. It's morning where you are, and we hope it's a beautiful one.
Yeah, it certainly looks like it's okay. The sun has risen. The dog is whining for Carl to take him out for a walk, but it's all good here. Sleeping still, so it's all good. Let's take this opportunity to welcome people who are listening today. I can see we've got a couple and also a comment. Oh, we have got a couple. So earlier this morning we were greeted by Moaz saying "Bon dia, Louisa and Rick. I missed you guys."
Thank you.
And also Siri from, oh crikey, I've forgotten where you're from, Siri. Let me know. I was just about to say with great authority that you were from Norway, but I'm probably wrong. I just realized that it might be it's probably a different part of Scandinavia. But I do know that Siri does sit pretty much just within the Arctic Circle. Fausk, that is Norway, isn't it? Thank you. Yes, so yeah, it is Norway. Thank you. So we've got an international feel already. So let's get cracking.
Let's get cracking.
Yeah, the title of today is "Letting Go of Your Persona." What is a persona, Rick?
Well, a persona is basically our characteristics that are recognized by ourselves and others. That is who we portray ourselves to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that makeup is what we take on as our own personas that we think we are and what we look like and all the characteristics that make us up as a human being.
Uh-huh.
That's a persona. So the question is, why should we let that go?
Yeah, definitely. Why should we let that go? I mean,
I have no idea.
It sounds like it's quite useful in identification. And we've got Gemma O'Rourke joining us as well from Tasmania.
Hello, Gemma.
Hello, beauties. So we've got a few people joining us today, and Sirius is just saying we pronounce the E. I think that's in. I think it should be Fauske. But it's probably wrong. So send me some more advice on that one. So we've got a nice little packed, viewing platform here. That's all great. So we've got these personas. They are some form of identification that it appears to be a common agreement as well. Why would we want to lose those? I mean, I have to say, just before my alarm went off this morning, I was having a nightmare, and this is obviously a very of like modern nightmare. But I was having this dream that I was being schooled because I'd forgotten to use somebody's pronouns and identify them properly. So I mean, you see how identity is a big thing, in consciousness. So what are your thoughts? Why would we lose our persona?
Well, let's first of all look at what the value of it is, because if it's our characteristics, then it's a way of identifying somebody, maybe by their walk, the sound of their voice.
Yeah.
All of these aspects of our senses can be stimulated as part of a character. So certainly for us, we have our five senses plus the sixth sense of intuition. And this is what we identify with us as being a human being, as opposed to a robot that may not have those senses. So it does serve us. It serves us really well because it is through our five senses and our sixth sense of intuition that we experience everything in the world. Everything. Right?
Yeah.
Our intuition is linked to our knowingness, our senses of other dimensions, of other aspects that are of perhaps a higher frequency that we don't necessarily tap into or see, certainly don't see them.
Yeah.
But it's through those six senses that we perceive and become aware of what's happening in our surroundings. And without those, we could be actually in serious jeopardy. Right. Because without the sense that, there's something wrong here, I'm noticing all the birds are flying away, all the animals are scarpering up the side of the hill. What does this mean? right? Well, if you're in Indonesia, as we are, it could mean the meaning of a tsunami hitting, or an earthquake,
or maybe
a
the volcano.
volcanic disruption, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, and then smelling fire or smoke. Perhaps we're driving along in the car. And something smells like it's rubber burning, right?
Yeah.
So, and then tasting food that could be off, right?
Yeah.
It could be delicious, but it could also be off, and sensing all of that. Hearing sounds. Wow, there's something going on here. There's somebody downstairs. That's not a natural sound. So, when we link all those perceptions to this physical form and our day-to-day life, they serve us very, very well. So what we're looking at when we say let go of the persona, this may be in the case of a meditation or a direct self-inquiry. It can be a contemplation. It can be sitting on a park bench near a lake or in a park, or walking in nature, right? And it's these times of reflection that then we can let go of all of these outer identifying systems and just be there, just be present, rather than being a male or a female, if I'm allowed to use those terms.
Who knows?
A father, a mother, a businessman, a sweeper, whatever, right? Those are labels that we put on ourselves, and they're very directly associated with our persona, right? So when we say, I am a CEO, all right, which I don't, and because I'm not, but that characteristic elevates me in the eyes of other people, those that would be impressed. I wouldn't necessarily be, because I believe in equality. I don't believe anybody is better than another. I believe they're different, but not better. But we have these labels that are part of this persona that we identify with, and other people identify with us as well. And now we get into this narrative of the adjectives, right?
Yeah.
We're human beings first, and even that's a label. But why do we need to define what political party we belong to? What is our sexual preference? What status are we in life? Why does that matter? Right? That's all part of the persona. Why can't we just be ourselves and just be very comfortable in our own skin? It's what I call being authentic.
Yeah.
So back to you for some comments.
Well, that was a really nice explanation. And I should just thank Siri for letting me know I pronounced Fauske very well. So that's good to know. Last night, we sat down, we had dinner, and the kids were just wanting to go and play on, the gaming machines and stuff. And we were like, no, we're going to go for a walk with the dogs. And so we headed out of our house, and just over the road, there's there's a very steep hill leading to a cliff, and then we're at the Atlantic. And it took us about, because we've got like 3 kids, and one of them's 3 and 2 dogs. It took us about 35 minutes to get up this hill. And it was beautiful, because like the moment we'd crossed the road and we were walking up this hill, we were in the wilderness really. And we were all just chit-chatting in nature and talking about the different creatures that were getting ready for bed and the ones that were waking up. And then we get to the top just after sunset. And we get to the majesty of the Atlantic Ocean. And where we are, it's pretty ferocious. I mean, just around the corner, there's this very secluded and calm bay. But on the actual kind of wild face of the Atlantic, it's treacherous where we live. And we got to the top, and we were like looking out to sea, and the skyline was changing. And we all had this kind of very different experience. The kids all of a sudden felt very activated in their bodies, and very almost limitless. You know, the 3-year-old thought he could climb a mountain, and he'd found this slope to climb up and down, and Digby was having this kind of experience, and Minnie was really intense looking at creatures and stuff. And I just stood there and felt myself shift. I just felt everything drop away, and I felt this power come out of me in that moment. Like the moment I felt something shift and drop. I think it started because I looked and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm so grateful to be here at this time. And then something just dropped and shifted, and whoa, I felt like this power come out of me. I just felt the enormity of nature almost going through me, and it was really strong. But, you know, I noticed it in the kids and how they changed. And obviously Carl, you know, he's quite happy being a bit wild. And then we just walked home. But there was just so many lovely natural things, like an owl, a little firefly that was kind of following us along. And then the frogs all started up, and it just felt like we were immersed in it. And we don't really get that many experiences like that.
Right.
You know, you have to create them. You have to walk away from all the artificial lighting, walk away from everything. It's so beautiful.
Yes.
So it just felt really right.
How profoundly beautiful. And that is a classic example of letting go the persona. Because hypothetical case, let's say there, just as you got to the top of this pinnacle, there was a guy there that was in a beautiful suit and tie with shiny shoes, right? And sees your kids climbing up this embankment, right? And he doesn't dare go there because he doesn't want to destroy this persona. He doesn't want to destroy his Armani suit and get his shoes dirty. Well, I'm not being cynical. It's just that the persona can be so great that it will prevent us from experiencing life. And it's when we let go of all this character and then can just be in nature like you were, is that we not only are being in nature, we are becoming nature. That is, we are from nature, we'll go back to nature. And it's not as even that we're becoming it, we are the recognition that we are nature, expansive, alive, regenerating itself, renewing itself, full of aliveness. And that's what we connect in those moments. Whereas if you were too busy thinking about the persona and your characteristics and what will people think of me, all of that, it's lost. So that's a love. You've just given us the most beautiful example of why we should let go of the persona.
Well, sorry. Thank you for saying that. Go on. Say what you're going to say, because you.
Well, it's much more possible in nature because of our connection, our innate connection with nature. That if we can just peel away these characteristics, we will see that we are nature. We're in it and we are it. And nature responds equally in the recognition of us as being part of nature. So there's no separateness. And these, I've had some of these profound experiences in nature and can totally relate to what you're saying there. And then synchronicities happen. In my case, I had butterflies landing on me, dragonflies. I had a bird within half a yard or half a meter of me. A whole troop of monkeys came up close by, where they were never come near us as human beings when in this jungle setting. So there was no threat. And that was just to allow all of these illusionary aspects of ourselves that we are not them. We have a mind, we have thoughts, we have emotions, we have a life story, we have a physical body. But when we can just be the animating factor, the consciousness that animates these physical bodies, the consciousness that witnesses the thoughts, witnesses the emotions without getting drawn into them, just the silent witness. And that is the process of letting go of your persona. Lovely example you've given.
Thank you. And I'd like to hear more about some of those stories about the monkeys and and dragonflies and stuff. I mean, we're very lucky to have quite a few insects around here, and but like when we were walking up the hill yesterday, one other thing I noticed is we had a kind of transition period, between us in our from us stepping outside our house, which is on a nice little estate. Walking past all these houses, and we're kind of very normal people. And we crossed over the road, and we were just starting to walk up the hill, and there were still signs of life. We were walking up sort of like next to a few caravans on a caravan park. But as we were kind of getting up to the hill, our kids started playing really imaginatively. Our 6-year-old really likes making stories. I think that's quite a feminine thing, isn't it? She had a little doll with her, and she was telling stories about how it lived under the sea, and she had these incredible languages and all sorts that came out. And our 3-year-old, and and then Digby, and they were really kind of, I don't know, it was almost like they were unwinding. Like at the end of the day, you go and sit down, and your mind is still on the job of what you've been up to, and you almost need that transition period. But by the time we got to the top, and all of humanity that we could see had just like disappeared, and we were just in plants and on the cliff, and observing the sunset, it's like it all dropped away. So I also accept that for most of us, we might need this kind of transition in between.
Yes.
I'm sure as you get really good at it, you can just like flick between the two. We've got some comments. So One Love is also joining us, and it's a lovely heart. That's beautiful. Thank you, and welcome to the show. And Siri's saying
love.
All love. Yes,
It's
absolutely.
only love.
Yeah, definitely. And then Gemma's said the number of synchronous things going on right now, Louisa and Rick, is beyond. I'm sitting journaling on questions surrounding ajna activation, third eye, intuitive knowing, seeing, and I had just written I am nature to describe clairaudience, sentience, and cognizance. Wow.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Isn't that lovely how that just matches up with what we're
Yes.
talking about? That's beautiful. And that is so synchronous. Thank you for sharing that.
Lovely.
Yeah, I am nature. It's such a strong thing. And Siri's saying, yes, we are all, I think that's meant to be nature rather than mature.
Yes.
Indeed, Gemma. I don't know if I'm mature. I don't know if I would put that label on me.
That's it. Mature nature.
Mature nature. In fact, that's a really nice thing. I mean, like when there is an absence of nature and you try and get it back, you don't have that maturity. Like where we're living, one of the things that came up when we moved to this kind of little enclave of civilization was that we don't really have land. We've got a backyard that is made of ceramic tiles. There's just tiles everywhere, and we've grown this quite remarkable garden out of nothing, with homemade containers, and we're growing all sorts. But there's no mature nature. But in about 6 months of being there, there was when we arrived, there was a snake that had fallen into our garden from climbing up a wall and falling in, and we rescued him, but there were no other signs of life, just like nothing. And now we've got these huge carpenter bees, which are like dark violet color, and they fly in. We've got butterflies. We've got our chickens in the back. We've got dogs. We've just got worms are coming up through the tiles into our garden and stuff. But there's no mature nature, and it takes a while.
Yes.
So I do appreciate the distinction there. Again, I think our backyard is transitioning from being a yard into back into a natural state.
Yes. Yeah. Lovely.
One Love is smiling, probably about the nature thing. Sorry for misspelling. It made sense anyway. It sure did. It really did.
Very good.
So that's great. So everyone's feeling the love today. I'm enjoying that. Where do you want to go next, Rick?
Well, let's, because you've given us such a good example, let me question something.
Okay.
You said you all went through a transition of sorts. So you were feeling the physicality of moving out from suburbia into more nature. But what actually dropped away there? What was the key factor that holds us back from experiencing this oneness, this nature, this expansiveness? What is the main factor that has to drop away in order for us to experience that? And you've already given me the answer. You've given us the answer for what was happening with the children. But what do you think it was that just stopped in this transition?
Well, I would say that's my resistance and separation. So in that moment, as I was full of gratitude and said, wow, I'm so grateful to be here at this time. Wow, I can absolutely see the majesty. And like in that moment of gratitude, it was like I felt myself join. So I didn't want to be separate anymore. It wasn't a conscious thing, but it was that appreciation. And we recently went to a wedding in central Portugal, and I love central Portugal because you can see for miles, and the hills. It reminds me of Bali, actually. That's one of the reasons. And at this time of year, it's still quite green. So it really reminds me of Bali, and you feel those hills, and you get that sense of drama and perfection. And it's so gorgeous that you forget who you are, because you just like just looking around like a little child. And so when we were driving, every time we drive into central Portugal, I say, I can really see us living here. And we all have that experience.
Lovely.
And so I just think it just assaults the eyes with beauty, as if you can be assaulted by beauty, and you forget who you are. Oh, that's my experience. Is that the answer you're expecting?
Well, it is certainly part of it, very much part of it. The mind quietens, doesn't it? The trigger is to be grateful and appreciative, and then you're now, instead of resisting anything, you're radically accepting and radically surrendering into what is. So it's the mind that stands in the way of us experiencing these expansive experiences. And as you mentioned with your daughter, she was in definitely a right hemisphere experience of conversations with imaginary friends, certainly not imaginary for anybody else, but moving away from the left hemisphere, which is linear, it's logical, it's analytical, it needs to make sense out of everything, and then transiting, and that's the home of the ego in the left hemisphere, and then transiting, letting that go and having this expansive, beautiful, loving, connected right hemisphere experience. And for me, this is where we have mastery over the mind, is that we can master our mind by not having it dictating to us, by choosing the quality of our thoughts, which you did with gratitude and appreciation. And that will change the whole aspect for it. Remembering that preceding all action is a thought.
Yes.
Whether we are aware of that thought or not, but there is, at either conscious or unconscious level, there is a thought that then triggers the emotions in our physical body. So a thought of being grateful and looking at the superb, majestic nature is now transforming the actions that go within the mental body, the emotional body, and the physical body, and the spiritual body. So we're having a very different experience. So this is why it's so important to master our mind and choose the good thoughts. Watch your thoughts, choose the good ones, as the saying goes.
That's a really good observation, or thought about what the process I was going through, because I am very much in my head. I do struggle with meditation. I find the easiest way for me to meditate is actually to do something physically that, so I might play with poi or do something that involves my hands, something intensive. That's why I like gardening so much, because I'm always moving, and then all of a sudden the thoughts kind of go. And funnily enough, Siri, you're like head girl. You got the answer right. if there were right answers. But thinking, yeah,
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
Siri's right there
That's
with
it.
you.
And you're very similar to me. I don't meditate. I don't consciously sit down and meditate.
Yeah.
But most of my day is being experienced mindfully. And if we're being mindful, we're in present time. It's only the ego that wants us in the past, regurgitating the past, or stuck in the future. Oh, I can't wait for this to happen. So when we're gardening, we're woodworking, we're walking, we're doing some physical activity and we're mindful in present time, there is no ego. There's no disconnection. The disconnection is an illusion. We can't be disconnected from the whole. We are the whole. We are part of the whole. It's impossible to be disconnected from that oneness, right? But the mind can believe that. So it's a question of remaining in present time, being mindful. And then if we need to know where should we go for our holidays, or where should we walk the dog tonight, then we can go back into the past and look at, well, this was good, but I'd like to experience something different. There's the right hemisphere coming in. Let's be creative and go somewhere we've never been. So there's nothing wrong with past and present, but we don't want to get stuck in either or both of those. We want to move into the present, bring what's there into present time, or from the past, look at what's happening right here, right now. And that's the glorious, expansive experience that is available to all of us if we have some mastery over the mind. And that's not denying it.
Yeah.
It's not shoving it away. It's not trying to crush it. It's just being the silent witness. Oh, there's a thought. Right. Oh, it's trying to drag me down the path of fear. No, thanks. I'll choose the path of love again.
Yes. Yes. Do you know, I think you've hit the nail on the head as to why I like doing so many physical things. I really love being in my body, like from brushing my daughter's hair. I'm going to really miss it when she can actually do it herself at the back. Their arms are never long enough when they're younger, to get to the back. But all sorts of things.
Tell me about it.
I absolutely adore washing up, and that's when I have most of my sort of like inspiration comes to me, when I'm just washing up and I've got my hands in the soapy water, or last night just cooking, and my son is now getting interested in food and saying, can I help? And we went into the garden and said, let's pick a fresh carrot. Of course, it was asking, why are carrots so thick and stubby? And it's because they can't grow beyond the ceramic tiles. So rather than growing longer, they're growing out. And so there's all these observations, and it's so nice. We've got quite a few comments coming in. So so one lover saying, when I put seeds out, we attracted the birds. Yeah. I mean, it's just one conscious action after another, and we can bring nature to us. It's lovely. Some we'd never seen before. It's like they communicate and tell the others where the food is.
Drawing them to you.
Yeah. It's really, really special.
Beautiful.
Oh, and now we have squirrels. Well, that's a nice little bit of synchronicity, because it was the squirrels that Minnie was talking about last night. She loves the squirrels. Siri is saying it's like forgetting, being the forget-me-not. In fact, Siri sent a lovely picture yesterday or the day before of a forget-me-not, and it's one of my favorite flowers. I love those. So drawing is a perfect way to let go and get into a mindless state, meditative. And just let me just give you a bit of a plug, Siri. So Siri teaches art in the way of connecting into our senses. In fact, I think Gemma does as well, who's here. So we've got these very and I can think of another person who watches this show as well, Jacqueline. We've got lots of creative people who are very, very good at creating something amazing, and also just really feeling the sense of divinity within them. It's beautiful. Thank you, Siri.
Beautiful.
Thoughtlessness. I love that.
That's it.
Yeah. Beautiful. The art of no thinking.
That's it. I'm reminded, this is a lovely conversation. I'm reminded of my childhood on remote farm in England with no electricity, no running water. And we as a family, 3 boys, mum and dad, would sit round a paraffin light around the dining table near the kitchen with a warm fire going. And we would all have some physical activities. For me, it was colouring in. I'm not much of an artist, but for me, it was colouring in. My brothers were always writing stuff. My dad used to cut out timber. It's called marquetry.
Yes,
Right?
I remember.
And glue these beautiful pictures of locks and canals with horse-drawn boats on them. And Mum would crochet in beautiful tablecloths and knitting. And you see the older generation just sitting there and mindfully knitting. Our modern age has sort of denied access to a lot of that, but we can replace it by walking and gardening and doing things mindfully. That's all we were doing then, right?
Yeah.
But it was also of a creative idea. So I can remember a couple of years ago, I had a stack of books, coloring in books, and I was doing Tibetan mandalas, which were the actual activity of doing it is incredibly spiritually liberating. And that's like the Tibetan monks. They have these huge mandalas they do with colored sand. They do a ceremony and then they tip it all away. Nothing is permanent. So it's not hard to find something to do. And it's a rare occasion when our kids will come up to me and say, I'm bored. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe because they're probably terrified I'm going to suggest that they go and clean their room or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the worst thing, isn't
it? But there is so much that we can do. And, one of our daughters goes and picks flowers every weekend when she's not at school and makes these little flower arrangements. And there's something so charming about it and fulfilling. It's richly rewarded to do those sort of activities. Our electronic age has denied us some of those activities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it really has. I mean, I can see that the electronic age is kind of trying to mimic what we have in nature. And I think the electronic age that we've got at the moment is almost like the transition point. If we're talking about like moving from suburbia on a walk and we're transitioning to feeling connected to nature, it feels like we had our sort of like natural world, and then we've got the electronic world mirroring our natural world a little bit, and then we're at the start of this new metaverse where we're completely immersed in the electric world. It's interesting. It's called electricity because it's electric city. We're getting slowly more and more immersed into this electric city. And it feels like where we are right now is just the transition point. It's the gateway to it. And all it does is mimic everything that's in the natural world. I feel a sense of regret about that. And yet I recognize that maybe, there's a part of consciousness that wants to explore that, but it doesn't really feel like something that I'd want to do necessarily. Who knows? But
I think it's prudent to have a foot in both camp. So to be able to immerse ourselves in nature and to sit quietly, our place overlooking the jungle and the mountains, just to sit quietly, even if it's just having a morning coffee and just see and feel that experience. And then I'll go in front of my computer as I am now and spend 6-7 hours developing these online courses, digitally harnessing all of that is available to us. So I think we would be pretty lost if that was suddenly taken away from us. But at the same time, I don't think it would take us long to especially perhaps the older generation, to be able to get back into that rhythm, right, of nature. And with no electricity, we would go to bed when it got dark and get up with the sun. All right, just as indigenous people did that that survived and thrived for thousands of years, living in harmony with nature, taking only what they needed, putting back, being respectful and honoring the earth. I think that's still inherent within us, because as you experienced with the walk, suddenly the transition to where, and there you were being nature. So I don't think it would take too much to get back to that.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's just such a beautiful experience, isn't it? You know, you almost feel that heartbeat of earth. It becomes really, you almost feel it pumping.
Yes.
I mean,
human resonance.
Yeah, you have to, but you really do have to find yourself somewhere where where there's no electricity, or where there's no sort of sign of humans, and that's difficult. You know.
Yes, really, it is.
Prepared for that. So
not always practical. Not always practical to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yay to creativeness. I've been doing that lately. Keep going.
Oh yes, I'm sorry, you do it as well. Can I just check? One Love. That's Shannon, isn't it? I'm sure it's Shannon, but I don't know, because there's some. I get mixed up with some of these. Funnily enough, these online personas. Let me know. But yeah, I mean, yeah, so many people here, you know, are really beautiful artists. Moaz is saying, I'm sorry I missed the beginning of the show. Well, that's okay. I think, you know, you arrive when you arrive, and we were just talking about our connection with nature and how we can how we connect. This is an interesting one, because of where Siri's born and where she lives. She's saying no sunset till August here. What to do? You know, like she's just in the Arctic Circle. And so I was very moved by one of her photos last year. And I can't remember what month it was in. It was coming up towards Christmas, but it could have been like the end of, it's Michelle. I'm so sorry. It's Michelle. So I'm glad it wasn't, I didn't, you know, I'm glad I wasn't calling you Shannon all the way throughout. So thank you for confirming that. Yeah, so I was really moved because, like, Siri had posted this picture of her first sunrise, the first time, you know, they'd seen natural light in many months, and it was a really, really beautiful experience. And now, of course, she's in this place of perpetual sunshine and no darkness, and I wonder what that must be like. You know, I was just really moved by it. Just like the thought of, I hadn't seen the sun for so many months. Siri, can you let us know how many months do you go without seeing sunshine for? I'd absolutely love to know that. We got a bit of laughter from Michelle, bless her.
Well, there is.
It was January, so it was after Christmas. January
yeah.
when the sun arrived.
There is a beautiful sun that lies within us, the light, inner light. So be guided by that, and let that be the light that is missing in the outer world. Allow it to shine through from the inner world.
Yeah. Well, I'm guessing that's what you have to do. You know, if you live somewhere without that sort of, like, I mean, I think these things must really change your perception of the world. You know, if you grow up with so many months of the year in darkness, where you have to find your own light and be your own light, and then months of perpetual sunshine, you know, you have to find your own balance. And of course, you know, I was very shocked. And I found I did find it a bit of a challenge when I was in Bali, not having such obvious seasons, you know, and the fact that the sun like goes down quite rapidly, it comes up very rapidly. You know, where we are on our latitude, it seems to take quite a long time to set and quite a long time to rise, and even more so obviously in England. It's, you know, our perceptions must be set at birth. We noticed with our son that was born here, you know, 1,000 miles south of the UK, that he just has this kind of underlying tan that nobody else has got. I mean, obviously I don't have it, but Carl's ancestry is Asian, and so he's got this almost like, it's like his skin knows he was born slightly further south.
Mm.
I don't know. Siri's saying it's really intense, both 3 months with no real daylight, but 1 month all without sun. Inner sun,
Wow.
indeed, in the winter. Thank you for that.
Yes. Yeah.
And she's saying now it's a really intense life. You want to use every minute and second of your life, and sleep can get strongly interrupted, but sun gives a lot of energy.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. Well, I think that's a lovely philosophy, to make every day count, make every day special. In fact, a couple of years ago, I was pondering my own death, which I have done repeatedly for years and years. And so that I have arrived at a point where I don't have any fear of it. But prior to getting to that point, I was asking my question, how would I live my life if I was diagnosed with a terminal illness and I had 3 months to live? What would I put into those days? Would it be fear, or would it be love? Would I want to embrace life? Would I want to be adventurous and creative? Or would I want to be a miserable old sod that is playing out the victim and woe is me, or do something that could really be lasting for that 3 months, and which would also have an impact of those around me as well?
Yeah, I would imagine you'd, I mean, in my imagining, like imagining you imagining that, I'm imagining that you would want to put yourself at service and make sure that your family were dealing with it. And because I mean, I imagine, you know, what happens if I was to die, or if I had like enough notice, because I guess that is the ultimate in dropping your persona, isn't it?
It is.
You go.
There is no persona left.
Yeah. And so I just, you know, I just think, you know, how can I prepare the way for life without me? You know, not because it's a significant thing, but it could be significant to those around me.
Yes. Yeah.
It's that care. Of course, we don't know until it happens, but
well, we don't know how many days we've got, so make the best of every one of them. And gratitude and appreciation is the key. To everything. Whatever challenges come our way, just welcome them in, be grateful. They won't be very comfortable, obviously, but we're grateful that ultimately we always learn from the lessons because we are attracting them. So if we've attracted this, if we are creating our reality, which I do believe we are, then we've drawn this to us in order to grow, become more conscious, become more aware. So how can we push that away if we've created it? So then I just embrace it. And it's, again, I call it radical acceptance and radical surrender. Bring it on.
I mean, it is a surrender, isn't it? I mean, that's what happened with me in nature yesterday. It was like the separation just, it kind of dropped away.
Yes.
And when you were talking about that, you know, One Love, she sent in, interesting, in relation to what Siri's just shared, which is so she was saying it gives us a lot of energy, which is really welcome after the long dark. It gets harder every year as I get older. To appreciate the contrast. The contrast must be very, very strong. But what I really loved about what you know, One Love is showing is, you know, she's showing so much curiosity. You know, that's another thing that can come up. I mean, in this last month, we've had a little bit of sickness, and as a family, so we all started off with a flu, which wiped us out for a while. It's the first time we've all been ill at the same time. There's usually one of us that doesn't, but it got us all. And then we had like 3 weeks break, and then I had this awful stomach bug that lasted almost 2 weeks, and I'm still feeling kind of tired from it. And then our son got it, so it's clearing from me. One of our children got it. And it's felt like we've been in this place of illness and recovery. And one of the things that I think has been quite nice is just how we come around each other and we're near each other. But it's a huge learning curve, isn't it? You know, like we think of ourselves as quite invulnerable. You know, for the first time in my life, actually, I think I've just embraced being ill and just got into bed and and just allowed myself to be slow, and really appreciated my body for it. I'm going through quite a big cleansing, once you've emptied your guts for repeatedly for days, it feels like a great time to start a cleanse, doesn't it?
Yes.
You're already empty. You're already done half the process. So I'm like, oh, great. Wasn't planning on it, but perfect timing.
Well, it does feel like we're being compressed. In a way, we're being compressed into the body.
Yeah.
And just to use a story analogy, imagine if we'd been kidnapped. We're sitting in this warehouse on a chair with our hands tied with rope behind us and our feet tied there. And so, and we're tied into the chair. The one thing that we would want, the one thing that would be most important is not whether did I leave the windows down on the BMW, all right, or right, I forgot to bring my handkerchief. We would want to be free.
Yeah.
Right? We would want to be free. So what I'm experiencing, and a lot of other people with sickness and physicality and mental aspects, there's a compression going on, and which seems to be almost powerless towards, which we're not. But this compression is inviting us to become free.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like we would gently hold a dove that had fallen out and stroking it, and then holding it, and then allowing it open the hands and allow it to fly free. Oh, go away.
I know you're on about.
So there's this compression that seems to be happening for everybody I know.
Yeah.
And it is a sign that we are being challenged to break free of these bonds, to break free of these limiting beliefs, to break free of this mental construct, to break free of this persona. All of this is happening. Here's an invitation. You want to be free? I'm going to show you what it's not like to be free, so that you can now work at what you do want. Yeah. This is your freedom. This is your spiritual freedom. So that's what I'm experiencing. Obviously you are, and everybody I know, pretty well everybody I know.
Yeah, well, I think that matches the experience of the people I'm working with, right now, and also the people I talk with. I mean, like what Carl's working on, which is people trying to find freedom from moving from one country to another. That's coming up so much. And funnily enough, one of the things that we're noticing, especially with the Americans, is that thing that they were hoping to find freedom from, of course, because they've made a physical change in terms of coming to a different country, but they've not made the emotional change. And so they're finding the same things when they come to this country. So to give you an example, a lot of the people that are leaving the States right now, and the UK actually, and that's true for the UK expats that we've met. One of the reasons that they're leaving is because they don't like the political system. So we've got some people coming over saying, "Oh, I'm escaping Trump's nightmare. Biden's doing a good job, but it's taking too long. I need to get out because all those crazy Trumpers are still going on and on." And so they're coming. And then there's a load of people who are like, "Oh my God, Biden's ruining America. I've got to come over, and be sovereign." And so we've got people coming over with such a strong idea as to why they're coming over. And then they're meeting here. Carl sets up these meetup points once a week, and then there's another meetup point once a week in another place, so that people can all feel welcomed. And then they're all getting together and saying, "Oh, great, we've got this freedom. And all of a sudden the penny drops that they've left for the same reason, to find freedom. They don't always get there actually, but they realize that the person they're speaking with is the problem they were trying to escape. And so we've been doing quite a lot of subtle work behind the scenes, just kind of emphasizing that, most of us, underneath the veneer of what's causing our desire to move, is actually the same thing. For most people, we're trying to find freedom. And in my clients who aren't doing too much moving around, they're doing a lot of internal work, they're just looking for greater freedom in their lives. And
Interesting point.
And so many of us are compressed.
Yes. Yes.
Even the ones that are expecting to, they've been working on their freedom for many years. This compression is still coming in.
Yeah.
But it's
I imagine these people that are changing countries willingly, they're bringing with them their own luggage and their own baggage, mental and emotional.
Yeah.
So what strikes them immediately is what we know as cultural shock.
Yeah.
There is a comparison between what's happening here in this new country and what I'm used to and comfortable with and very familiar with in my own country, right? And my experience is it probably takes 5 or 6 months to really settle into any place where the culture is different. I lived in Singapore for 7 years, right? And very, very different culture from do-it-yourself handyman with beautiful. Hello, sweetie.
Hello, Solomon. Do you want to say hello?
Hello, Solomon.
Say hello.
A little bit sleepy.
Yeah, just woken up.
So, where will I find an electrician? Where will I find a plumber? Where will I find all of this? Because I knew at home I could just pick up the phone or go through the yellow pages or whatever. Right. So cultural shock is very prominent. Now, superimpose on that on the millions of people fleeing from disasters, from Afghanistan, from Syria, from Iraq, from Libya, Somalia, and now Ukraine. They're virtually carrying whatever they can with them. All their belongings, everything that was familiar has gone, right? They left that behind and finishing up in a country where they don't know the language necessarily. It's all very strange. They have no income. They're dependent on handouts. And there is this cultural aspect where it's almost impossible to assimilate into the new environment. And all you have to go back to, all you have to fall back on is the environment you came from. And now that's been destroyed. Right? So imagine the mental trauma that people would be going through. And we can change. Somebody can come from California to Portugal, right? And yes, you'll go through some cultural change. But think about carrying the clothes on your back and a few possessions and a teddy bear for your little kid and going off somewhere totally unknown. So that is also in the collective psyche, the collective consciousness of humanity is having a profound effect on the volume of consciousness that is awakening on this planet. Is that fear has been and still is to a large degree the predominant emotion, as opposed to something more freeing and loving and compassionate. People are being forced down into survival mode, and that's right at the bottom of the scale. Being of service, self-service is at the top. And so millions of people have been forced from good jobs, lovely homes, family, down into pure survival mode. Is it any wonder that we are experiencing some of the trauma, the collective mental aspects of people that are in trouble like that? Because we're not disconnected from them. They are an element of ourselves.
Well, I mean, I really feel that that's why a lot of people moving around at the moment, we're seeing sort of like people that we call expats, but I mean, really the term is immigrant. Anyone that goes and moves into another is like emigrating from where they are and immigrating to where they're going. Myself included. It's taken us 4.5 years to actually start to feel grounded and rooted. But I think everyone is feeling that sense of unrootedness at the moment.
Yes.
and like in our own ways, we're experiencing the loss of our persona in terms of, you know, what we had at home and the communities we had, and you know, so we're trying to help people rebuild a new community and start the first steps in rooting in a new place.
Yes.
But like nobody can understand what it's like for, you know, people who lose everything.
Yes.
But I
Yeah,
think we're going to
exactly.
see more and more of it.
Well, we're
No,
seeing it in wildfires in Australia,
yeah,
floods around
yeah,
Europe.
yeah.
Um,
We
this
had it here
forces,
with
yeah,
our fires
yeah,
when we first arrived. Sorry to interrupt. Like when we
no,
first got here, it was a year of massive forest fires, which I mean, not like the Australian ones, you know, but it was a really shocking event for Portugal. And you know, when you were talking about smelling smoke, you know, when you were like traveling around, we were in the back of the car, and one of the kids said, "Mum, are you burning incense in the car?" And it wasn't. It was a bloody forest fire we were driving away from.
right.
It was so funny, like, burning incense. Shows what a crazy hippie he thinks I am.
Yes.
Yeah, it's scary. Go
So
on.
on a grander scale, what's happening is our personas, that character that we've built around ourselves to show the outside world,
Yeah,
is being dismantled
yeah,
on a global scale. And we've known that some of the benefits of COVID is that people have reevaluated what is important.
mm,
Is it chasing the best job and having all this materialism and
mm,
consumerism, or is it family and
yeah,
being together and having lovely conversations and meals together? So we're seeing on a macro scale, we're seeing what's happening on a micro scaling as human beings are waking up. They're reevaluating their importances. They're reconnecting to their values
yeah,
so that they're dismantling this persona, this I that we refer to. I do this, I am that.
mm,
Show me where that I is.
mm.
Nobody's found one yet in all the.
Oh, I hope I haven't lost you.
It is the person we could, but I'm a man, I'm bald, I'm a father.
Yeah,
No, there's something beyond that. And that's
yes.
for us to uncover and discover and embrace, fully embrace that,
Mm.
embody it, live it through our values, live it through being an example in life. So,
Yes, absolutely. I'm gonna have to go in a minute, but I'd like
yes,
to just pick up on a couple of things. One of the things I'm noticing for people who aren't moving, and possibly for people who are moving at the moment, is I'm noticing that people are starting to question who they thought they were. So I've had a couple of clients in the last year or so who have gone from one political way of thinking to another political, like completely flipped, and are coming to terms with, whoa, was that a lie? And how did that happen? And I didn't expect to ever see myself as a, there's these identity shifts going on. And I'm also
mm,
noticing that people are getting more and more, actually, left or right. I'm beginning to find myself a bit more in the middle now, because
yes, yes,
it's the realizations that each way is taking us down a direction that is just oppositional. So I'm seeing people shift, and it takes a lot to shift. And it's only, my experience is the people who are the slowest to shift are possibly the ones that are still really playing out some really big hurts that are too big for them to let go of at the moment. Because we're
yes,
seeing some people really losing their SH1T, like they're going absolutely crazy, in a way
yes.
that it almost feels like they cannot even look at it. So these are quite interesting times, these times of compression.
Very, very. And I guess they must be needed because that's the reality that we're experiencing at the moment.
Yeah,
And,
they're helpful to us actually. These
yeah,
people. Sorry, that was a bit more of a view of my boobs than I was expecting. think I think people who are really standing firm by their beliefs and justifying their anger and justifying their over emotionalism, because their cause is so right. I think they're serving as an example to people, and people are thinking, oh, well, I don't identify with that. That doesn't feel very peaceful. That doesn't feel very joyful. It doesn't feel very life affirming. It feels actually kind of life ending. When you have a view that's so absolute that it can't bend. I mean, there's one thing which is like a sense of truth, or that connection to nature, the connection to what is real. But there's another one which is that imposed truth, which I think just feels so false when it's assertive with, it's almost like a weapon to beat you with, rather than something to really affirm life. But
exactly. And once again, crisis is the driver of change. So our world is in crisis, ecologically, the biosphere, politically, financially. There's a lot of crisis going on. And out of that crisis will arise something different. So if we're stuck, if we're compressed in that straitjacket, we won't be able to do anything. And the straitjacket of the mind will stop us. So we need to free our mind and free our spirit so that we can live fully as a human being and not just contracted.
Yeah. And yes. And I'm asking myself the question, why am I feeling triggered right now? So, like when I'm talking about people that are getting very upset, I sometimes get really triggered by them. And I think, oh, why am I getting triggered? Oh, well, there's a bit of that in me. That's why I can see it, of course. We've got a few more comments that I'd like to share before we go.
Very good.
So grateful for the people who have joined in today. It's lovely when people join us. Moaz is saying, I think we should all ask that question. Only 3 months left. Oh, yeah. I think that's a good exercise, actually. Another one that I've seen is writing your own eulogy. That certainly brings things back into focus.
How would we like to be remembered?
Yeah. Gemma saying, Louisa, do you consider spike protein influence? I certainly have been challenged in the last 18 months in this way. That's a whole other conversation, Gemma. But you know what? Yes, I have considered it. We have had visitors, and we've been around lots of people. Obviously, you can't go anywhere these days without bumping up against a spike protein or two. And it has certainly affected my cycles. And we are taking action, put it that way. But thank you. Yes, you're right. And I think if people are experiencing illness, that's sort of unsurprised, it's a bit surprising. It's like, where did that come from? It's a place to start. So thank you for that. I'm guessing people who understand that comment understand it, because they're already doing a lot of research. One Love, thank you, Michelle, for saying glad you're feeling better. We all are. It's I have to leave now. Thanks so much. Sending love. Sorry you didn't hear our love back to you, but thank you.
Thank you.
Moaz is saying, I agree with you, Louisa. One needs to resolve his issues before moving to Portugal, or the issues will follow him to Portugal. Yes, like wherever you go, there you are. That's
it. with your baggage or without.
Yeah, wherever you go. I mean, I remember saying to Carl when we were leaving the UK, oh, there's a couple of very strong women I'm quite happy to let go of here. Because like we seem to attract really strong older women, like matriarch types. We both do, because we've obviously got sort of issues around that area. And it didn't take us very long to find a couple more when we got here.
Well, they found you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They find us, because they always find us lacking and needing their support and whatnot. And Moaz is saying, oh, just adorable. I'm guessing that's the arrival of young Solomon here. So anyway, I think we should draw close to this. I've enjoyed this, Rick. Thank you for joining me once again.
Me too. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah,
always.
It's so nice to have these lovely people with us as well. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Check in, tune in another time, and we will be talking about things. If you've got any recommendations or things you'd like us to talk about, then please do just let us know. We're very, very happy to take requests. Maybe we have someone join us one day. Who knows?
Yes.
Anyway,
we never know.
Anyway, lots of love to you. Have a great week. We'll catch up real soon.
Thank you, Louisa. Big love from Bali.
And big love to Bali. I'm so grateful.
Indeed.
All right. Lots of love. Bye for now.
Ciao.
Hey.